Shocking. Airline staff blocked black pilot at 3 a.m. Then this happened. You'll never believe. Under a moonlit sky, the hum of airport lamps cast ghostly shadows on the tarmac. It was 3 a.m., and the world slept soundly, but inside Terminal 7 chaos was brewing. Captain Marcus Turner stood stunned before a small group of airline staff. His palms were clammy, and a smoldering anger knotted in his chest. Here he was, a respected pilot, suddenly grounded by a strange decision from those who should have welcomed him with open arms. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting an eerie glow over the incompetent, baffled faces lined against him. The first whispers of the night hinted at something dark. The murmurs of staff echoed tales of a mysterious incident, sparking heated conversations like wildfire. The atmosphere was thick with tension, eyes darting, curiosity swimming like fish in a murky pond. Just hours before, Captain Turner had been in the cockpit, the controls under his fingertips as he soared through starlit skies. Now he was being told hush-hush that he couldn't fly. While the reasons floated in the air like smoke, too thick to see through as the minutes dragged on, tension escalated. A nearby passenger's phone buzzed, shattering the silence, and the whole scene felt like a slow-motion film. Staff glanced nervously at their watches. What in the world were they waiting for? Turner's heart raced. Was this a simple mistake or something much worse? He felt the weight of their gazes, felt the stifling atmosphere wrap around him like a suffocating shroud. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then, just as he was about to voice his frustration, one staff member stepped forward. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear. She glanced over her shoulder as if expecting someone to materialize from the shadows. There's something you should know. She hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. Right at that moment, the lights dimmed even further, creating a sense of impending doom. The room went deathly quiet. It was as if the night itself held its breath. What truth was lurking in the dark corners of their delayed decision? Was it just prejudice or something more sinister? With Marcus standing there, his heart jolted. It was clear that this was only the beginning of a dangerous game. The air was electric with anticipation as he braced for the revelations about to crash over him like a tidal wave. And everyone around felt it too. What could possibly happen next? The dimming lights created an oppressive atmosphere, each flicker echoing the suspense that gripped the small crowd. Captain Marcus Turner held his breath, ready for whatever perilous truth this frightened staffer might reveal. The room felt charged, like a live wire buzzing with anticipation. Speak up! Someone called out, their voice tinged with urgency, a mix of fear and curiosity rippling through the group. The tension was palpable, thick as the fog rolling in from the nearby bay. The staff member, the woman with the ashen face, was frozen, caught between the weight of her words and the fear of their fallout. Finally, she gathered herself, stepping away from the huddle. Captain Turner, she started, her voice trembling slightly. It's not just you. There was a flight earlier that a loud crash from outside suddenly shattered the tension. It was a metal cart tumbling violently onto the floor, sending echoes through the terminal. Everyone jumped, eyes widening in shock. The moment obliterated, and Marcus felt his heart race as adrenaline surged. What now? As the chaos settled, he turned his focus back to the staff member, who was visibly shaken. With a deep breath, she continued, there was an incident on Flight 246 a few hours ago. Something, or someone got past security. They haven't confirmed what happened, but it's serious. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Suspicion and fear danced in the air. What kind of incident? Marcus pressed, his voice low but urgent. Every fiber of his being was on edge, aware that something perilous lurked just beneath the surface. It was a hijacking attempt, she stammered, eyes wide as she scanned the faces around her for support, for understanding. The attacker was subdued, thank God, but they need to clear the airport before they let anyone else take off. Shock washed over him like icy water. The implications were enormous. You mean they're grounding all flights? His heart sank, anxiety twisting in his gut. But the look on her face said there was more. Yes, but... She lowered her voice, drawing the attention of the other staff. They didn't tell you everything. There are rumors circulating that you were discussed as a potential target. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. A target? Marcus felt the world tilt as disbelief battled dread. Why me? The staff whispered among themselves, their expressions shifting from fear to something more sinister. The woman leaned closer, her voice barely audible now. They think there might be someone on the inside. Marcus staggered back, feeling a wave of nausea. Someone in the airline had gone rogue? This was more than just a flight delay. It was a betrayal that could swallow him whole. Panic surged through the terminal as the reality began to sink in. People were now gathering, overhearing bits of the conversation, the horror of what they heard interwoven with suspicion. Eyes turned toward Marcus, judging, questioning. Were they afraid of him? Of who he might represent? The fluorescent lights above began to flicker yet again, plunging the terminal into an unsettling twilight. For a moment, everything felt suspended in time. He could feel the weight of every gaze, the burden of their expectations heavy on his shoulders. Someone spoke up from the back. You need to get out of here. But where was he supposed to go? A sense of urgency pulsed within him. Distrust lingered in the air like smoke. The flight risk had become personal. As the panic swelled, he made his decision. We need to figure out what's going on. If there's a threat, I can't just stand by. Determination surged, and he pushed his way forward. But just as he prepared to confront the truth, the lights dimmed again, plunging them into total darkness. In that moment, everything felt wrong. Someone gasped. A scream split the silence. What had just happened? Marcus's heart raced as he realized the chaos wasn't over, it was only beginning. The darkness wrapped around him, thick and suffocating. Marcus squinted, straining to see anything through the void, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The sharp intake of breath from the crowd felt like a collective heartbeat, quickening, anxious. Panic was like a living thing, slithering through the air. Is everyone okay? Marcus croaked, his voice breaking the tension. He could feel eyes searching, looking for answers, hoping he had answers he didn't yet possess. His hand fumbled for his phone, the light flickering to life and illuminating the faces of those around him, fear etched into every contour, uncertainty lingering like a wet cloud. Outside, shouts erupted. They were muffled but undeniable, punctuating the silence with raw urgency. Get out of the way. Someone yelled, the authority in their voice demanding the others to move. He turned toward the source of the commotion, the light casting a long shadow behind him. We need to get out of here, he shouted, feeling adrenaline curl his fingers. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, bathing the terminal in a harsh white glow. Faces were pale and the atmosphere felt charged, as if the turmoil had electrically charged the air around them. A young man stepped forward, his breaths coming fast and shallow. Captain Turner. There's talk of another threat. Something's happening just outside. The young staffer's voice cracked with panic as he pointed toward the exits, where figures could be seen darting past the large glass doors. His gut twisted. What do you mean, something's happening? Marcus asked, a sinking feeling spreading through his chest. He was caught in a whirlwind of chaos, and it was only escalating. It's the police, the young man stammered. His eyes darted nervously to the door, as if hoping the chaos would resolve itself. They're preparing for something. There's been reports of a second party in the airport. A wave of disbelief washed over Marcus. A second party? But he clenched his fists, battling the rising tide of frustration and fear. Suddenly, the terminal doors swung open with a loud bang, startling everyone. 2 uniformed officers rushed in, faces set in grim determination. Everyone, stay calm and listen, one of the officers shouted, their voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. We need you to move in the opposite direction now. Alarm bells blared in Marcus's mind. What are you talking about? He stepped forward instinctively, the leader in him refusing to back down. What's going on? The officer met his gaze, eyes steely but haunted. There's a suspect still at large. We've received intel they may take hostages. We cannot allow anyone to leave the premises until further notice. Marcus's throat tightened. An active threat inside the terminal, and they had no idea who it was. The implications shot through his mind like daggers, fear and betrayal wrapping tightly around his heart. Who could be involved? How could they protect the people he cared about? Marcus. The staff member's voice trembled, breaking through the chaos. What do we do? He swallowed hard, determination surging like adrenaline in his veins. We find out who it is. We stop this right here. Before he could say anything more, a loud bang echoed from the back of the terminal. The crowd gasped as the sound reverberated off the walls. It's starting, someone whispered, eyes wide with shock, horror evident on every face. Just as a shadow materialized at the far end of the terminal, Marcus could feel the collective hope and trust in him, what little remained simmering on the edge of disaster. This was his moment, but the danger loomed ever closer. And just as he prepared to confront the growing threat, every eye in the room turned toward the shadow, breathing in anticipation, uncertainty hanging thick in the air. It became a question of survival as Marcus stepped forward, ready to face whatever it was. Would it be the last face he ever saw? The shadow moved, shifting in a way that felt otherworldly. A sense of predatory calm surrounded it, and Marcus felt the air grow heavier. The crowd's breath synchronized, quickening, as every eye fixated on the figure emerging from the darkness. Marcus! A voice broke through the tension. It was the young staffer slipping back into the fog of panic, his face pale and trembling. We need help. We can't just stand here. But Marcus couldn't take his eyes off that silhouette, every instinct screaming at him to act, to do something, anything. The shadow stepped forward, revealing a tall figure clad in dark clothing. The tension in the room thickened as whispers erupted, uncertainty becoming a living entity. Was it the suspect? Or something even worse? Everyone back away. The lead officer barked, tilting his head slightly, trying to read the danger while keeping the tranquility he had fought hard to establish. Stay calm, he repeated, but panic was too infectious, too eager to take root. The figure was moving closer, and Marcus's heart raced. Adrenaline surged through him, squeezing the breath from his lungs. He caught the glint of something metal in the figure's hand, and a primal instinct kicked in. Get down! Marcus yelled, instinctively pushing the young staffer away as he dropped to the floor. The crowd exploded into a chorus of gasps, feet pounding against the tiled ground as chaos erupted. In a fraction of a second, the figure advanced too fast, too assured. Marcus rolled to the side, hoping to be unnoticed, desperation fueling him to act. He grabbed a chair and hurled it toward the shadowy figure, the wood splintering dramatically against the hard floor. But it was too late. The figure lunged toward the officers who were still attempting to organize the crowd, raising the weapon high. It was pure instinct. Marcus sprang back to his feet, feeling fire ignite in his gut. Stop him! He shouted, his voice slicing through the screams and the chaos. It was like time slowed, his call echoing against the tiled walls, desperately reaching the remaining calm within the terminal. One of the officers shifted, taking aim, but Marcus could see defenses wavering as fear gnawed at their resolve. Take him down now! Marcus screamed, his pulse ringing in his ears like an alarm. Then an eruption of noise, the gun fired. A flash of light, loud and vibrating, ricocheted through the terminal. The crowd fell silent for a moment, the air suspended like a thick fog. Hands trembled, paralyzed by shock. Eyes widened as the figure stumbled back, momentarily rocked from its steps. The collective gasp was a living entity, sharp enough to cut through the tension thickening the atmosphere. But suddenly, the figure stood tall, unfazed, eyes glinting with a fateful determination that sent a cold shiver through everyone present. With a sinister grin, it lifted the weapon again. What do you want? A woman cried out, her voice breaking the silence, tears glimmering in her eyes. Why are you doing this? The figure's expression darkened, revealing nothing but contempt. It's not about what I want, it said, voice smooth yet venomous. It's about what you will lose. Heart racing, Marcus glanced around, weighing options, grappling with the urgency of the moment. They had to come together, fight or flee. It became clear that if they didn't act now, the situation would only spiral farther into darkness. Then, from across the terminal, a shrill alarm sounded, tripping a cascade of flashing red lights. A second surge of panic rippled through the crowd, mixing with desperate cries. Time was running out. Marcus! The young staffer shouted again, do something. He felt the sting of responsibility press heavy on his chest. It was more than the need to fight. It was the weight of lives at stake, hope crumbling like dry leaves. Marcus locked eyes with the advancing figure, refusing to back down. It had to end now. The moment of confrontation was circling closer, but an unsettling question lingered. What lengths would he have to go to stop this threat? And as he stepped forward, adrenaline surging through him, he could only wonder if he was truly ready for the choice he would have to make. Marcus moved into the chaos, the air swirling thick with dread. He could see the crowd's fear mirrored in their eyes, and it ignited something deep within him, fierce determination burning bright. He couldn't let this escalate any further. He had to act. Listen to me, he roared, his voice cutting through the cacophony. A few heads turned, drawn to his resolve. We need to create a barrier, something to protect ourselves. The young staffer stood frozen, fear etched on his face. What do you mean? He stammered, glancing around at the growing panic. Grab anything. Chairs, bags, anything we can use. Marcus barked, urgency spurring him. He grabbed an empty luggage cart, its wheels squeaking as he dragged it toward the figure, wheeling it like a shield. The sinister figure didn't wait. With a fluid motion it charged forward again, weapon raised. Marcus pushed the cart in front of him, preparing for impact. The figure's laughter echoed, a chilling sound that reverberated off the terminal walls. Is this the best you can do? It sneered, the light glinting off the metal in its hand. For a moment Marcus found himself in the depths of its gaze, like a hunter sizing up its prey. Then, just like that, time fractured. A voice from the crowd rang out, a mother holding her child, desperation filling her words. Help us. Please. That was it, a reminder that beyond this battlefield, there were lives intertwined, loved ones desperate for safety. Marcus felt the fire reignite within him. Now, he shouted. We're not gonna let fear win. Around him more people began to react, grabbing bags, pulling loose chairs together, creating a desperate makeshift barrier. The officers stood alongside, eyes darting with panic but fueled by a shared resolve. They could hold their ground if they wrapped their arms around survival. The figure hesitated, caught off guard by the sudden shift. For a brief moment, vulnerability flickered across its face. Ha! Pathetic. It snarled, recovering quickly, swing the weapon carelessly. You think a barrier can save you? Marcus felt his heart race. That was the moment. He could see the tension cresting like a wave, ready to crash. We won't be afraid anymore. With that, he lunged forward, bearing the weight of the crowd's hope and terror. He hurled the cart aside and sprinted toward the figure, every ounce of adrenaline coursing through him. He had no plan, only instinct and innate drive to protect the people behind him. He dodged as the figure swung the weapon in his direction, the motion fleeting yet terrifyingly precise. Narrowly missing, skin prickled with the fear of the unknown. Marcus! Someone shouted, but he couldn't turn back now. He locked eyes with the figure, determination flaring bright. This was the moment he'd prepared for. Enough! He screamed, hurling himself forward, uncertain if this leap would change anything, but knowing he couldn't stay frozen any longer. The weapon got raised again, fingers tightening around cold steel, but this time, the collective power of everyone facing the shadow fueled Marcus. Could they stand together? Tension reached a breaking point, breath stalled with confusion, half-hearted screams trailing into silence. And then a deafening roar pierced through, the sound of an approaching siren, blaring and overwhelming. The crowd turned, shock rippling through them. Hope began blooming just in the instant doubt seeped in. Marcus! What is happening? The young staffer yelled, eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Then it hit him, the sirens meant backup, an infusion of strength, a chance to snuff out the terror. But could they hold out until help arrived? In that moment, a chilling thought struck Marcus. This figure wasn't just a threat, it might even be part of something larger, and what were they truly up against? As shadows danced along the terminal walls and every eye turned toward the chaos, one terrifying question hung in the air, sparkling like shards of glass. What fate awaited them when the sirens stopped? The sirens echoed louder, forcing their way through the din of chaos. Heartbeats synced with the wailing sound, creating a rhythm of fear and hope. Marcus's breath came in ragged gasps. How long could they face this dark figure alone? The air felt electric, thick with uncertainty. He edged closer, determination burning in his chest. "Stay together," he shouted over the fray. The makeshift barrier quivered with every rustle of panic. Chairs scraping, bags tumbling, it all felt surreal. With a sudden lurch, the figure lunged again, eyes wild and dangerous. "You think you can save them?" it screeched, spitting venom with every word. The weapon glinted ominously under the fluorescent lights. It was a monster anchored in madness. Then, just like that, a glimmer of hope sliced through the air. The police rushed in through the terminal doors, uniforms a wave of blue crashing into the tumult. But before Marcus could release a breath of relief, another blaring surprise broke from the shadowy figure. "Fools!" it screamed, more furious than before. "They're all going to." The rest was drowned out by the clash and bang as the officers forced their way through the barricade of terrified civilians. Arms flailed, commands shouted, "Get everyone back!" One officer yelled, his voice booming like thunder. He was trying to regain control, but Marcus could see something menacing swirling behind the figure's eyes. There was a flicker of movement almost too quick to process. The figure dropped low and then lunged toward the nearest officer. Marcus felt his heart freeze, eyes wide. "No!" he yelled out, but it was too late. The metal weapon surged forward, aiming true. A gasp rolled through the crowd, some hands caught in mouths, other bodies frozen in horror. Then, without warning, a gunshot rang out. Time seemed to slow. Marcus blinked, waiting for the explosion of chaos to unfold. But amidst the haze, he realized the figure hadn't moved. Instead, it stumbled, eyes wide, momentarily disoriented. A single bullet had pierced through the tension. The officers had fired quick, resolute. But as Marcus caught his breath, disbelief crumpled his resolve. Light from the overhead bulbs glinted off a strange emblem on the figure's jacket, an insignia he couldn't recognize. "What is happening?" he stammered, mind racing as he turned to the officers swarming the figure. Now on its knees, a predator laid bare. Morbid curiosity twisted in Marcus's gut. What kind of nemesis had they been fighting? The officers dragged the figure back, handcuffs clasped tight, faces grim and focused. "Get the crowd to safety," one officer barked. "We need to figure out how bad this is." But even as they began securing the perimeter, Marcus saw something flickering in the chaos. A dark shape slipped out of sight, disappearing through a side exit. His instinct screamed a warning. This was more than just a lone lunatic. There was a system lurking in the shadows, calculating and waiting. Before he could shout a warning, the sirens outside ceased, leaving an eerie silence that wrapped tightly around them. "Marcus, what now?" the staffer asked, a tremor in his voice. "It's not over," Marcus whispered. What had the figure been part of? And more importantly, what was the next move? Shadows loomed large, the night far from finished. In that silence, an unsettling realization began to settle in. They hadn't just confronted a threat. They had ignited a flame beneath a much bigger fire. What brewing danger awaited them now that the sirens had finally gone silent? The silence dragged on, oppressive and thick, like a heavy blanket smothering any shred of relief. Marcus felt the weight of his heartbeat thudding in his ears, drowning out the whispers of those around him. Panic hung in the air, palpable and cloying. "What was that?" one mother muttered, clutching her child close. Others exchanged frightened glances, words hanging unspoken in their throats. Marcus looked back to the officers, still processing the aftermath of the chaos. The figure was on the floor, handcuffed, its once menacing presence now reduced to a thrashing struggle. But something gnawed at his gut. They had only dealt with the surface of the threat. "Take a look at that jacket," he said, pointing as he worked through the unfamiliar emblem dancing in his mind. "What does it mean?" One officer, a rookie, knelt beside the subdued figure, studying the insignia. His brow furrowed, muttering to himself, "I've seen this before." Before he could finish, a muffled shout erupted from behind them. "Someone's getting away." The shout jolted Marcus into motion. He pivoted, scanning the exit where the shadow had slipped through moments earlier. The side exit. They must have planned this. With raw urgency arching his spine, Marcus darted toward the door, heart racing. Every footstep felt electric, pulsing with adrenaline. "We can't let them get away." Behind him, the chaos continued, But he muted the noise. He could feel the world narrowing to just that exit. The fear that had gripped the terminal moments before morphed into a singular purpose. As he pushed through the door, the chilly night air hit him like a slap. The parking lot sprawled before him, empty and desolate. Shadows darted between the vehicles, like phantoms flickering in the night. He spotted the dark shape moving fast, a figure seamlessly blending into the inky blackness, probably headed for an alley. "Stop! Police!" he shouted, though he had no badge to back up his command. The words tumbled out, fueled by instinct more than authority. To his surprise, the figure froze momentarily, then bolted toward a thick cluster of parked cars. Gritting his teeth, Marcus chased after them, lungs burning, his heart pounding thunderously. He was gaining ground. He could see fragments of the figure's clothing, a glimmer of something. What secrets were they hiding? What kind of network lurked in the depths, weaving a web of chaos around innocent lives? Suddenly, the figure stumbled, a momentary lapse that left Marcus wheeling in excitement. He was almost there. The adrenaline surged, pushing doubts aside. But just as he reached out, a hand shot from the darkness, yanking the figure back into the shadows like a puppet on a string. "No!" Marcus shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. He lunged forward but only grasped at empty air. Terror twisted in his gut as he slammed against the wall of a nearby vehicle, chest heaving. He stood there, panting, scanning the parking lot, breath caught in a fist of panic. Where had they gone? Was it too late? Had the threat slipped away, merging back into the murky abyss of the night? A light flickered in the distance, another siren? Or worse? Before he could calm his racing mind, he felt a presence looming behind him. "Marcus," a voice rasped. "You need to see this." He turned slowly, dread pooling in his stomach. The officer stood, face grave, holding something that shimmered ominously in the darkness. His heart sank as the officer turned it toward him, a cell phone, its screen illuminated with chilling messages. "What have you stumbled into?" Marcus whispered, realization clawing at the edges of his mind. The night was darker than he imagined, and the hunt was just beginning. Marcus took a step back, his mind racing through the implications of what he saw. The officer's face was etched with tension, lines deepening with every passing moment. The screen glowed, reflecting a series of frantic messages, calls for help, coordinates like a map to a hidden destination, and a growing dread that crept into Marcus's thoughts. "What are those?" he stammered, his voice low but urgent. "Connections to a bigger network," the officer replied, frowning. "Look at the last text." Marcus leaned in, scanning the screen. His breath hitched. The message read, "They're coming for us. For am. No one is safe." The weight of those words crashed into him, sending a shiver through his spine. Who's coming? What have they done? He knew they couldn't waste time standing still. A storm was brewing, and he could feel the thunder rumbling beneath the surface. The officer, still holding the phone, shook his head. "I wish I knew. But we need to find out, and fast." The chaos in the terminal began to fade into the background, the muffled cries of panic replaced by the throbbing urgency of the moment. Marcus fought his instincts to run. Instead, he needed to think. "We can't let this go unnoticed. Call in backup. Every resource we have." The officer nodded but hesitated, glancing around the dark parking lot. What if they're already here? The fear in his eyes mirrored Marcus's own. He had felt it lurking in the shadows, waiting. "No, we can't think like that," Marcus urged, fighting to suppress the rising anxiety. "You need to alert the others while I try to get a lead. Find out if anyone else has seen anything." Before the officer could protest, Marcus turned away, scanning the area. Each parked car felt like a sentinel, each shadow a potential threat. He took a deep breath, calming the whirlwind of thoughts whirling through his mind. Time wasn't on his side. They had to act now. Just as he was about to step away, a sound caught his attention, a faint rustling from behind one of the vehicles. Heart racing, he shifted closer, peering between the gap. "Nothing." "Marcus," the officer called out, voice strained. "What do you see?" He raised a finger to hush him, focused on the sound that was growing louder. Closer. Then he saw a shimmer, a glint, something metallic. He debated for a split second whether to stay back or press forward. But before he could decide, a hiss filled the air, sharp and startling. The unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked echoed from the shadowed space. "Don't move," a voice barked. The tension snapped taut, and Marcus felt his blood run cold. "Show yourself," he shouted, keeping his hands raised, the fight-or-flight instinct clawing at the edges of his mind. This was it, a showdown against an unseen enemy. "Back away or the next few seconds won't end well for you," the voice threatened, dripping with malice. Marcus's heart thudded violently against his ribcage. He glanced back at the officer, nightmarish uncertainty shadowing his features. This wasn't just a pursuit anymore. It was a battle for survival as the darkness loomed heavily around them. A scream shattered the night, a desperate, piercing cry that echoed through the parking lot, snapping Marcus to attention. "Get down!" he yelled to the officer, adrenaline surging as he dove for cover. Before he could grasp the full magnitude of the danger, there was a thunderous crash followed by the sounds of chaos erupting once more, intersecting with shrieks of fear. The hunt had morphed once again, and Marcus could feel it, a chilling sense of inevitability laced with dread. What waited for them on the other side of the night? As he peered out from behind the car, his pulse quickened, struck by a haunting thought. What if this wasn't just a chase but part of something far more sinister? And what if, in saving this network, they unleashed something darker than anyone could have imagined? "Marcus," the officer's voice broke through his thoughts, laced with panic and confusion. They weren't safe, not yet. And ahead lay a darkness that could consume them both. What terror would unravel next? The gunshot rang out, sharp and jarring. It pierced the night like a knife, slicing through the chaos. Marcus flinched, instinctively pulling the officer closer behind the car. They were exposed, caught in a web of uncertainty where danger lurked in every shadow. "Move!" he shouted, urgency pulsing through his veins. They scrambled, ducking low, hearts pounding like war drums. The officer glanced at him, eyes wide with disbelief, the weight of the chaos pressing down hard. They darted behind a row of cars. But chaos erupted around them. The night was filled with shouting and the harsh screeching of tires. Flashing lights flickered nearby, a beacon of hope and alarm all at once. Sirens blared, a melody of frantic urgency that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Marcus's racing heart. "Where do we go?" the officer gasped, breathless, desperately scanning their surroundings as a distant scream echoed, chilling Marcus to the bone. "I don't know," Marcus admitted, clenched fists trembling. Panic clawed at his throat. "But we can't stay here. We need intel, a way to get out." Just then another shot fired, this one closer, echoing like a drum. They couldn't sit idle. Without a plan they were prey. Time slipped away, fading like the light of the day. Through the building, Marcus pointed toward the glass doors leading into a small terminal, still dimly lit. It was risky but better than being caught in the open. They raced for it, every step a frantic dance with fate. As they slipped through the door, they were met with shadows and debris. The faint scent of smoke wafted through the air, mingling with tension. Marcus pressed himself against the wall, listening intently. The world outside was still a storm of commotion, but the moment they stepped in felt like the calm before it all erupted again. "Look," the officer suddenly said, spotlighting a flickering monitor in the corner of the room. They moved closer, breath hitching again as they caught a glimpse of the screen. Grainy images of the parking lot and frantic activity. An operator seated there looked back at them, confusion etched across her face. "Are you guys okay?" she shouted over the ringing chaos. "I can't get this working, there are too many of them." "Who's coming?" Marcus yelled. "What do you see?" "There's a mob, they're trying to break in. And there's something else, someone know. It can't be." Her voice trailed off, eyes widening in horror. "They're not human." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, another gunshot echoed through the walls, closer this time. The lights shuddered, flickering wildly. The officer turned, a look of dread morphing his features. "We need to move. Now," he urged, adrenaline pushing him forward. They ran, adrenaline surging as they shifted through the haphazard landscape of chairs and scattered debris. Each footfall felt like a countdown, every heartbeat a reminder of the impending violence brewing outside. "Can we escape through the back?" Marcus asked, feeling the weight of their reality closing in. "There's a service exit. If we reach it, bang." The door shattered, replacing uncertainty with raw terror. A figure stumbled through the wreckage, a silhouette against the harsh lighting. Marcus froze, instincts flaring. If that was the face of the enemy, every hair on his body stood at attention. "Run!" he shouted, dragging the officer as they broke for cover, their breaths mixing with the acrid smoke in the air. "This way!" As they raced toward salvation, their goal twisted with the shadows. The air was thick with dread, each moment dragging like an eternity. In that split second, Marcus could feel it deep in his bones. The Predator game was becoming something far worse. And just before they could reach safety, a chilling whisper swept through the air. "You can't escape, not from us." What had they stumbled into? The network they had chased was alive, pulsating, and now they were part of its darker weave. Would they emerge on the other side? Or would the night consume them whole? The world outside was upside down, a nightmare transformed into a reality more twisted than any of them could imagine. As Marcus and the officer pushed forward, the sounds of chaos erupted like an incessant storm, exploding with dread and fear. Ideas raced through Marcus's mind. It was all unraveling faster than he could process. They skidded around debris, frantic footsteps pounding against the cold floor. "We have to find a way out," he shouted, containment dripping with urgency. The officer nodded, panic flickering in his eyes. They dashed toward the back exit, adrenaline flooding their veins. But every moment felt heavy, as if unseen chains were trying to pull them back into the turmoil they fled. "Here! Through this door!" the officer yelled, pointing to an emergency exit close at hand. They pushed through, heartbeats racing in sync with their desperation. The air shifted, chilling them as they tumbled into the darkness beyond. Suddenly the space opened up, revealing a vast maintenance area littered with old equipment, half-finished projects, and a disarray of tools. Dim light flickered, casting shadows that seemed to dance with its own sinister will. There was no time for either of them to slow down. They had to keep moving. Loud bangs echoed from somewhere. The mob was relentless. "What do we do?" the officer asked, breathing heavily, glancing around as if searching for any sign of safety. "Cover behind that wall," Marcus ordered, tugging him to the side. They crouched behind a metal crate, breath stolen by tension. "We need a plan. We need to know just how deep this thing goes." Breathing raggedly, Marcus pulled out his own phone, a lifeline in the chaos. "I'll call for backup. Maybe we can reach someone who can handle this." "Wait," the officer hissed, eyes darting around. "If they can track you, they'll know where we are. We need to pull ourselves together first." Just then another crash rang out. It felt like the world outside was collapsing, and every fiber of Marcus's being screamed that they were losing their chance. "Too late for that," he muttered, dialing furiously. The call connected, crackling through frantic static. "This is Officer Shaw. We need immediate support at the airport. Hostiles are inside, and it's escalating fast." As he spoke, Marcus's heart sank. What could they possibly do to stabilize such an imminent threat? It clawed at the edges of his mind, gnawing away at hope. But just as he finished the call, he heard a voice drifting through the shadows, twisted with malice. "You can't hide forever." Panic began to surge again, and Marcus stood up quickly, looking for an exit. "We need to keep moving. They could find us any second," he urged, scanning the area. Just then, a glimpse of movement caught his eye, a shadow creeping ominously closer. "Go!" he barked, pulling the officer up, and they sped deeper into the labyrinth of machinery, moving quickly but quietly. The atmosphere changed, thick with a dreadful anticipation. The metal and tools around them felt like remnants of a world turned chaotic, a mocking reminder of normalcy in their dark reality. Suddenly they heard muffled voices from the distance, angry shouts mixed with a twisted laugh. It sent icy fingers up Marcus's spine. Were they building an army? "Over here," he pointed to a dimly lit hallway off to the side. They sprinted down it, heart pounding with every step. If they could just get to the loading bay, maybe they could signal for help properly. But just then the echoing laughter filled the hall, mocking, taunting. "Running 1T save you," it called out, sending chills racing down Marcus's back. Their breath grew shallow as they reached an old service door, rusty and barely hanging on its hinges. If they could just get through, maybe they could get to safety. "On 3, Marcus whispered, gripping the handle tightly, adrenaline coursing through his veins. 1, 2, 3. They yanked the door open and dashed through, slamming it shut behind them. They emerged into the loading bay, illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. He could see the shadows flickering. Through a distant window off in the lot, darkness swarmed like rabid dogs, closing in on them. "Find something we can use," Marcus shouted, urgency twisting his gut. They began searching through scattered equipment, templates for the night, desperately hoping for something to arm themselves. Just then, an explosion rattled the walls, slamming into them like a physical blow. The vibrations surged through the floor, as if announcing the violence awaiting them on the other side. Marcus tightened his fists, determined not to allow fear to consume him, but he also felt that familiar flicker of doubt. Did they really think they could fight against whatever was lurking beneath the chaos? As doubt teased at the corners of his mind, the weight of his resolve settled heavily on his shoulders. He couldn't hold back anymore. "We can't wait for backup," he breathed frantically. "We need to know what we're up against. We need answers now." Around them, tension erupted again as the door rattled violently, shadows looming outside. The darkness was here, and they were stuck in its grip. It was now or never. "This is our chance," Marcus gritted through his teeth, heart thrumming in a drumbeat of urgency. They couldn't let dissent win, not now. As the door burst open, pouring a flood of chaos upon them, the darkness lunged, fully alive, a nightmare made flesh. Then, in the heartbeat of a moment, Marcus charged forward, ready to fight not just for their lives but against the very essence of what had tried to engulf them. This time he would stake everything in the resolute battle against that encroaching darkness. "If it's a fight they want, then let us give them one hell of a showdown." With that, the undeniable resolve swelled within him, and Marcus dove into the fray, determined to emerge from the storm and take back their ground. As chaos erupted, he knew this would shift the tides forever, turn fear into strength and weave hope through despair. The night would not win, not if he could help it. And with that, the battle began, raw and real, as every heart surged together in determination against the impending storm. You need to subscribe now for exclusive content that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now if you want to keep the excitement alive. Don't just watch, flood the comments section with your theories and reactions. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion.